What's up, noobs? Welcome back to Noob's Perspective. Today is part 3 of the Simple Python program, and we are going to be adding in a Fibonacci sequence. Let's get started. So I'm going to do what I did last time. I'm going to copy the contents from the previous video's work and put it in here, so we can kind of see the differences as we go along. Last time we finished out the tip calculator and got some input validation. I'm going to get rid of this call to the tipper function and create our Fibonacci function. So if you're not sure what a Fibonacci sequence is, let me give you a quick explanation on it.
I'm going to get a list created. We'll call it Fib Sequence. Set it to an empty list for now.
So the Fibonacci sequence is a sequence where the next number is the result of adding the previous two numbers. The sequence starts with a 1. To get the next number, you have to add the previous two numbers. So we have a 1, and then before that there's nothing, so that's 0. 0 and 1 makes 1. And then 1 plus 1 is 2.
And then for this next one, so the previous two numbers, which is 2 and 1, that gives us 3. 2 and 3 is 5, 8, 13, 21, and 34.
So the purpose of this function is to be able to get some input from the user, and for the user to be able to see what the Fibonacci sequence number is for a given number. Let's say the user says, I want to see the 100th number in the Fibonacci sequence. They can provide the number 100, and it's going to process the Fibonacci sequence to 100 items. And then it is going to either print the list, or if the user just wants to see what number that is, it'll just print the number.
Now I could just do it so that it processes and it just does the math a certain number of times to get the number, but I'm actually going to be creating a list so that I can refer back to all of the numbers in the sequence up to however many items the user chose.
But to do this Fibonacci sequence, I need to use a for loop, because essentially, let's say the user gives me 100 items. I need this to be able to keep adding the previous two numbers up to the 100th item. So it's going to have to keep doing the same thing several times. And this is syntax for a for loop. Use the keyword for. Typically you'll put I here. You could actually use any
Letter or word,
but I is what's typical. And then keyword in. And then over here you can do a few different things, but for today what I'm doing is range. So we're doing for I and range. And I basically need this to go as many times as there are numbers required. But the problem is, I don't know how to get Python to add the previous two numbers if I'm starting with 0 numbers with an empty list. I do know that the Fibonacci sequence starts with 1, 1, and I can use that to my advantage because now I have two numbers to work with. So what I'm going to do is have my for loop start at 2. It'll start at the second index and then continue on to whatever number the user gives me. For now, I'm just going to say to 20. In a list, an index is just a location in the list. So in a list, the index starts at 0. So if I say give me the first item in the list, its index is 0. And this happens to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The value actually matches the index. This could actually be any number. Index 0 is now 12, index 1 is 1, index 2 is 4, so on and so forth. This is essentially going to start in the index 2 position. And it's going to process up to, but not including index 20. So it's going to have 20 items, but since we're starting at 0, the index we end on is actually 1 minus our top number, which is 20, so we'll get 19. Sorry if that's a little bit confusing. I'll have another video on for loops to explain things like that a little better, and on lists. I'm going to start with 1, 1. Basically what I need to do is append the following number to the Fibonacci sequence list that I have. Appending just means to add an item to it. In this case, appending means I'm going to add a number to the end of the list each time we go through the for loop until the for loop is done. So we will append the next number in the Fibonacci sequence, which is calculated by adding the previous two numbers. The previous two numbers I can get from my sequence at a particular index. Index 2 is where it's starting. To get index 2, I need to add index 0 and index 1. I could just type 0 and 1. The problem is that'll only work for this first iteration. After that, it's just going to do the same thing every time. It's just going to add 0 and 1, and then our result is just going to be 2 every time. What I need to do is to have this index change as our iteration changes. But we're going to say I minus 2. I is currently 2 minus 2 is 0. So here's index 0, so that'll work. And then I minus 1. So if we're starting at 2 minus 1, index 1. And as I gets bigger, this will still give us the right answer. Let's test it and print out our list. That looks right to me. Alright, so now that we know that works, I need to get some input from the user.
I want to be able to ask the user to give me a number, and that number that the user gives me is how big the list is going to be. So if the user gives me 100, the list is going to have 100 numbers, the first 100 numbers in the Fibonacci sequence.
I'm going to make them give me an integer. I'm not going to worry about input validation. I'm just assuming that for now the user is just going to give me a number every time. But now I have to make it iterate that many times. So I'll replace this range with num, and then I'll have it print the fib sequence again. Let's see what we get.
I'm really dumb, and I did something here you probably saw it. Pretend I didn't make that mistake. Oops. Whoops. Fib sequence.
Okay, let's do 100.
Oh, you're spelled right. I'm stupid.
There we go. 100 items in the list. And if you don't believe me on the length of the list, let's find out. This stands for length. This actually returns an integer telling me how long this list is. There it is. It's 100 items long. So I want the user to be able to tell me if they want to see the entire Fibonacci sequence list of length, whatever they give me, or if they just want to see that one particular number. I'm going to use an if statement, but I need to get some input from the user to indicate how they want to see it. So I'm going to call this potatoes. You should really give your variables some descriptive names to kind of describe what their purpose is, so it makes sense, but I don't know, potatoes make sense to me.
Type 1 to C, entire list, or 2 to C, int number.
Let's make an if statement.
If potatoes is equivalent to 1, I would like for you, Python, to print fib seq. If potatoes is equivalent to 2, I would like for you to print fib seq at num.
But there's a problem with that. I will let you see the error that we are going to get. And I want to see 2. We got an index error. The list index is out of range. The reason for that, if you will recall, that the index in Python lists will start at index 0. What that means is if they want 100 items, the last index is not index 100, it's index 99 since we are starting at 0. So that is equal to the number of items minus 1. So now I should be able to get it. Give me a number, and if I type 2, that means I just want to see the 100th number in the Fibonacci sequence. If I call it again, and I say 100, I want to see the entire list. And it gives me the entire list. That's all for this video. The next video I want to do a GUI, graphical user interface, just to kind of clean things up and make this useless program a little less useless. If you have any questions about anything I've done in this video, please let me know. And if you have any better ways that I could have handled this, let me know. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day.